All right, well, I want to thank you so much for joining us. It's a real pleasure.
Well, it's fun to have a discussion with you personally. I've seen some of your thoughts on the presentations on the internet, and so it's good to meet you in person.
Well, one of the things that we wanted to talk about were the whole subject of the conference is the Trump administration in the next 4 years. I think one of the things that you can really bring some deep insight into is just what kind of domestic constraints Trump is facing in trying to set up his administration and what that means going forward. So can you share with me some thoughts on that?
Well, he came to Washington with political momentum, and he, I think, assumed that would bring the Republicans in Congress along with him. But most of the people in Congress, I was told long ago, when I first came to Washington, almost everybody in Congress believes they could do a better job than whoever is president. They all have the ambition to be president, and especially the senators. They believe their peers, that the president is just one of them. So and some of them watch presidents come and go. So it's a different game than I think what he expected. And his staff were not experienced. He brought in people from the campaign who saw the momentum and wanted to exploit it. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't carry very far in Washington. He had trouble setting up an administration. That's still a problem because he did get some cabinet officers in position, but the key really in every department is the cabinet secretary is the voice to the public and setting guidelines for each department. But the management is done by the deputy secretary, the undersecretaries, assistant secretaries, all of whom have to be appointed and confirmed by the Senate. And nothing works until that happens. So you get a cabinet officer in, and then somebody is managing it until you have a name, and lo and behold, it'll be a holdover from the previous administration with the title acting. So he's set up a system and then has really the old administration still there, not necessarily working in the same direction. That's particularly keen in the Defense Department, where there's a lot of decision making every day, procurement decisions, how money is spent, and people in this Defense Department saying, "Help! We really need to flesh out the whole system." Now, what is the problem? The president doesn't have experience with delegation. His business experience was very personal, micromanaging, really. Washington doesn't work without basically appointing somebody, giving them a mission, saying, do it. If you're successful, you'll get promoted later, and if you can't do it, you're out. And it's just that simple. It's delegation, authority, and responsibility, but I'm not going to micromanage you. So as the delegation issue became important for each of these slots, let's say General Mattis sent a whole bunch of names over from the Pentagon of people he thought knew enough to hit the road and be able to run and get everything done. And all those names were rejected initially by White House people who knew nothing about the Defense Department. But they were thinking the campaign said we're going to bring change, so let's bring in some of the people who are flamethrowers. And so they made counter proposals, and then, of course, General Mattis said, I can't work with this. So it's taken time. They still don't have there or in Treasury. There's no team there to do the tax reform. So they're improvising with Gary Cohn in the White House, leading a small group who've never done this before. And this is normally a task that takes 200 people, some of whom are in the Ways and Means staff and the Senate Finance Committee staff and the Treasury staff. I would say 200. I worked for the Senate Finance Committee twice. I'm really familiar with logistics. It's not a small task because the tax code runs tens of thousands of pages, including law, juridical decisions, interpreting the law, and regulatory letters saying this is what our policy is. So all of that it's a huge task.
So I thought we might bring this to a little more specific. So obviously Trump and Xi just had a meeting recently. This is probably one of the more high profile and more important meetings that Trump has had with a foreign leader so far. So can you talk through with me how some of the challenges that you just talked about affect the relationship between Xi and Trump and between China and the United States?
Before the meeting, Trump made some pretty strong allegations of China cheating in trade, and that it's been hurting the United States. We've lost jobs, and we're going to make a change, and we have to close the trade balance. This very aggressive stance. Xi is a very powerful leader who rose to the top in a society of 1.3 billion people. He's managing big changes in the military and in the security system, using corruption charges to winkle out almost everybody who might be a potential opponent. He's got a very orderly system, and he has to show that he's in command. He's imperial. And he's not going to deal with, this kind of a barrage. So he will be calm, but he will do what he did at Davos in January, and say that, the world has come to a time where even China has to be part of building a better multilateral system, more international cooperation. He'll do that sort of thing. And then they will privately get into a discussion, but there's been no preparation. But normally the narratives of both countries are elaborate, exchanging papers, people talk to each other, prepare their dialogue. By the time leaders meet, it's not improvisation, there's a program. Quite often it's a program. I have 5 issues, you have 6 issues. Tell you what, I'll do 3 of your issues if you'll give me 4 of mine. And so it gets that simple, because leaders don't want to get into the detail, because they make mistakes when they get in detail.
Do you think things are going to be happening at that level even with the U.S.-China trade relationship?
It's going to be a problem. He wants to focus on trade, and he wants to put pressure on to do something about North Korea. Those are his big things. And both are uncomfortable, but on trade, I don't think Xi will react symmetrically, get in a scuffle about trade issues like, jobs. He's going to be asymmetric, probably. He say, look, if we're going to work together, we're going to work together. If there's going to be tension, I have problems managing my end, you have problems on your end. But so, it could go badly. I mean, all the people in China, they'll demand that I not put up with that kind of brutality. Let's take an example of GM is really big inside the U.S. I mean, it could be awkward if they were found to have a lot of corruption and a tax audit revealed a lot of problems. I mean, it might crush them, but we don't want to get there. And, Boeing, I know these people at Boeing, they were here all the time, and, we could buy Airbus tomorrow and cancel all the contracts. So is that what we really want? I think that's asymmetric. I mean, it's not going to be about tariffs and taxes. And she will say, look, the world has worked together to make these rules like the World Trade Organization. What we really did was agree, all of us, including China, no more unilateral action. So if you're going to break that, I'm certainly going to have to talk to the Europeans and others to see whether we all agree that you shouldn't do that. I mean, it's going to be not pleasant, but it'll be done in a cheerful, warm way. But these are things we should avoid. Probably they'll agree to have further chats. And then they'll appoint somebody on each side to be the informal, behind-the-scenes conduit. But it will take time. And the Chinese leader will say, we've got to have channels that are separate. We need a channel for the military to avoid accidents. Something where we don't brush each other's airplanes too closely. We've got to find some working arrangement about South China Sea that doesn't lead to, if you keep pushing the way you're doing without an orderly discussion, I will have to declare the aerial defense identification zone, and then we're in trouble. It will be that kind of, do you really want to push this? So, but what the relationship has to be is in the form of something very coherent, a narrative of here is how the two countries are progressively bringing harmony into the relationship and managing the frictions. And that's a style that is longer term to develop than one face-to-face meeting. And by the way, Trump likes to play golf with people to break the ice, but She, has told everybody in China, you can't play golf. That's defining classes. It's bringing back wealth versus the people and all that. So he's not going to play golf.
So we've talked now a little bit about the U.S.-China relationship, but so how do you think some of these dynamics play out in terms of the U.S.-Russia relationship and Trump's role and all that?
Trump has had people around him interacted with Russia. He actually used Kissinger to open the relationship a couple of months earlier, after the election, but before the time he became president. Putin is a very thoughtful person. If I happen to know him. I sat next to him at dinner several times in St. Petersburg when he was deputy mayor. I mean, he's not a buddy, but I sort of can see how he thinks. He likes to tell a story, explain why he's where he is, and he does it very well. He can talk a full argument from start to finish of why what he's doing makes sense, and Trump is more of a bullet issue kind of person, one thing at a time, and so they will struggle to get on a common narrative. Trump is learning about the different parts of Europe, the different issues between the U.S. and Europe, and security and defense. Putin sees all of that as one cohesive set of challenges. He has the near abroad, the former Soviet bloc, in other words, which he knows well. He was head of the KGB group in East Germany. I mean, he's familiar with all of this. Trump doesn't know much about that. So they will struggle to find commonality of purpose and objectives. What should the two countries do to avoid excessive friction? You'll do what you need to do, and I'll do what I need to do. But he's not going to give ground much. He's going to say we have to find a way to not get overly excited with each other, and we should have military to military discussions. And there should be a red telephone so that when something is not going well, the big boys can talk to each other. My guy Shoigu and Mattis, they'll hit it off. They're both kind of guerrillas, So this kind of talk will be underlying it. You have to have a comprehensive strategy when you're looking at Europe. Europe is a fragmenting array of countries that have differing political movements going. European Union is fragmenting, and what does the U.S. really think about it? Our military is busy formulating what I call a northern tier defense system. So Norway, the Scandinavians, Poland, the Baltic states, and the UK. And the F-35 is an example. The F-35 is being flown in and out by all those countries through the London bases. And they're trained in the same bases. All these planes are interactive. This is the first time in air power history that the planes are totally interactive. It's all one system. Everybody trains on the same software using the same helmets. So there is an integrated battlefield being developed. Are we going to focus on that, or are we going to focus on the main part of Europe or the southern part of Europe? And of course, when you think about that, then you think about North Africa and the near Middle East, which is all part of Putin's area where he's expanding. Now, before Trump goes very far with Putin, he's building a new dialogue by embracing General Sisi. Because what basically this is all about is a battle. The Russians want to have their main base there, and the U.S. wants to go back to where it was, which is the main staging point for that whole region in Egypt. And that's probably what will happen. But they will talk about things like this. But Trump doesn't bring a narrative of how he wants to engage or be distant with parts of Europe. So he's an early stage. Putin will see opportunity for exploitation of the ambiguities, I think, and that will be the challenge. And what Trump will need is somebody near him who's looking for where he thinks Putin sees those vulnerabilities, and then address them through people in defense and the State Department and so forth. State Department is not filled out with appointees either. So we have the two main agencies in dealing with Russia, defense and state, that are just a skeleton crew. And worse in state, because Tillerson is actually trying to get a lot of people out of state. Building that new arrangement requires cohesion, consistency, a single narrative, which requires somebody sitting next to the president from time to time, reminding him that let's stay on track here.
Well, I'll ask you one more question. I'll leverage some of your deep experience with American politics, which is, a lot of people said that Trump is completely different than anything we've ever seen before in the presidency. Would you rate him as completely exceptional in that regard, or do you think that just in the age of media and Twitter and all this other stuff that he sort of gets an outsized reputation?
I think he is, by instinct, improvisational. He tries something, and if it works, he'll pursue it, and if it doesn't, he'll change the subject and move on to something else. He's short focus. But he makes a lot of movement that way. It just it's like a group of military out there in the field ahead of the army, probing to see what's going on and looking for ways to proceed. He's more impulsive and improvisational than any president I've seen before. Usually presidents, whether they are like Obama, who like to be cautious and move slowly, or whether they're more aggressive, they do a lot of thinking and interaction with staff and lots of memos on what are the downsides and what are the upsides and who will be for and who will be against. A lot of thinking goes into that. It's not spontaneous. It's like the best example was Lyndon Johnson, who would, before he said anything in public on anything like a relationship with another country, would have, for 48 hours or more, people at high tension drafting questions that might be asked. It might be 10 variations of the question. What would be the right answer that keeps things moving without, thorny, scratchy stuff happening in the process? So Trump won't do that. So it looks sometimes like presidents are improvising, but there's an awful lot of planning that goes into each initiative. And also there's a matching of speeches, public addresses, the text of public addresses, and Twitters and anything else written, that guides the people under you in our State Department and Defense Department, but also guides the leaders in the other countries. All those speeches are not just for public, to address the public and make them alert to the fact the president's busy. They are guidance in building a relationship, and he doesn't do these things. Now, he may learn to do it, but his style is new and different. And borders on impulsive, which is world relations don't really work, in a stormy sea, and the gyroscope is down and the rudder is not working, and you're cut loose. It doesn't work well because everything takes months, years to develop. Let's go this path or that path. So we'll see how he handles it. If he delegates, it's not going to be a problem. I think the key to all of what he's doing is he's got to learn to delegate. Once he's set a direction he wants to go, let other people do it. Stand behind it, be consistent, but let them talk about it also. The narrative becomes very important. Now, Obama liked to do all the talking. If you notice, he didn't let his cabinet officers say much. Every day on every subject, whether it was Gulf oil spill or whatever, he would do the talking. That's unusual. We got used to that. But traditionally, presidents don't do that. Presidents let the cabinet officers do the talking. And then if they come up with a winner, then the president will say, my guy just did this on my behalf. My administration is great. But if it didn't work well, they could say, did he do that? It's putting the lightning rod somewhere else and on another building. So I don't know whether he can overcome this paranoia and this resistance to delegation. But that will be the key to how his foreign relations work.
And do you think the effect of that will be just a sort of stalemated-ness, that things won't, like a stagnation, or do you think it will actually cause some kind of real harm?
We'll have accidents. Things that go badly usually don't happen by intention. The accidents happen, and then you have to, or there can be guidance that the president believes in and turns out to be a mistake, and then it's a question of can you row back. I mean, the Bay of Pigs invasion was an example of it went badly, but at least Jack Kennedy pulled back, managed to row back. Vietnam was a classic case of nobody quite intended to have this massive long war, but it ended up that way, not by intent, but by it had momentum, and it was hard to stop. So I don't, the president with North Korea, he's talking as if we can just flip a switch. Maybe we can do an EMP to North Korea before they do it to us. That's possible. But if it didn't work, it then leads to all kinds of consequences. If we hack their entire internet system, it doesn't mean somehow or other they don't have a safety system to inflict the same on us. So it's just, as I say, you have to have a long view and then lay out the direction you want to go, and then have the whole system work at it. Takes time, and in the meantime, at lower levels there will be decisions. What happened in the latter part of Obama's term is the Defense Department, particularly General Dunford, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs now, simply decided that the absence of a deterrent capability was going to let Putin just move into Poland and the Baltic states, and then say, "Oops, I'm sorry, but it's too late now to stop." So they began to move things around, putting tanks here and there, and putting uniformed officers there, on the assumption that the Russians won't actually fire a bullet at a uniformed American, and I think that's correct. So you don't need an army out there; you just need a small amount. That continues now under General Mattis. It is actually becoming a real deterrent. Probably Trump hasn't paid a lot of attention to it yet, because they are calling this logistical rearrangement for efficiency. But it's really a battle plan, but a deterrent plan is the way I would describe it. It makes sense, but it's the kind of thing where you have to delegate that, not micromanage it. The military knows how to do that. They don't like war. They like to go to, the senior officers like to go play golf on their own golf clubs, and they like the quiet, and they don't like to lose their boys. I mean, they're not warmongers. They like big budgets, but they don't like war. So they know how to keep peace, but you got to let them do that.
Right, and I guess that'll be the big question going forward.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it.